3 years passed after the vote, 3 years of silence from Earth. In the beginning, the galaxy watched carefully. They expected humans to beg for mercy. They expected protests, threats, or desperate attempts to change the Assembly's decision. But none of that happened. Earth simply went quiet. The last human ships left community space exactly 30 days after the vote, just as ordered. They took everything with them. Their stations were emptied. Their colonies were abandoned. Every trace of human presence was removed, as if they had never existed at all. At first, the other species celebrated. They held festivals and made speeches about how they had saved themselves from a dangerous threat. Ambassador received many awards for leading the vote against Earth. He gave interviews where he talked about how wise the Assembly had been. But as the months passed, the celebration stopped. Something felt wrong. Humanity's silence was too complete, too perfect. It was like watching a wounded animal disappear into tall grass. You knew it was still out there. You just could not see it. Fleet Commander stood on the bridge of the human battleship Iron Mountain. The ship floated in the darkness at the edge of human space, far from any star gate or trade route. Around him, 50 other ships held position in a perfect formation. This was what remained of Earth's military might, hidden away where no alien eyes could find them. Was an older man with gray hair and a scar across his chin. He had fought in 3 border conflicts before the banishment. Now, his only job was to wait and watch. "Any movement from the border sensors?" he asked. His second officer, a young woman named, checked her screens. "Nothing, sir. The Assembly patrols stopped coming near our space 6 months ago. They seem to think we are finished." Smiled slightly. "Good, let them think that." He turned to look out the main window at the darkness of space. Somewhere out there, billions of aliens were going about their lives, confident that the human threat had been removed. They had no idea what was happening on Earth. Back on the home planet, everything had changed. The banishment had been a shock at first. Earth depended on galactic trade for many things: food, medicine, technology. When those supplies stopped coming, people panicked. There were riots in some cities. Governments argued about what to do. But then something remarkable happened. Humans stopped fighting each other. For the first time in history, every nation on Earth agreed on something. They would survive. They would not just survive. They would become stronger than ever before. President Park called it the Great Unity. All of Earth's resources were combined. All of its scientists worked together. All of its factories turned toward one goal: making humanity independent. The first year was the hardest. People went hungry. Hospitals ran out of supplies. Many died from diseases that could have been cured with galactic medicine. But humans endured. They always did. By the second year, things began to improve. Earth's scientists made breakthrough after breakthrough. They found new ways to grow food that did not need alien seeds. They created medicines from Earth plants that were just as good as galactic drugs. They built new power systems that were cleaner and more powerful than anything the Assembly had. And then came the biggest discovery of all. Doctor was a young physicist working in a small laboratory in Korea. She had spent her whole career studying faster-than-light travel. The galactic community used star gates for long-distance travel. These gates were controlled by the Assembly, and humans were no longer allowed to use them. Without the gates, traveling to other star systems would take thousands of years. But Doctor found another way. She called it the fold drive. Instead of traveling through space, her engine folded space itself, bringing 2 distant points together. A ship with a fold drive could cross the entire galaxy in hours, not years. And best of all, it did not need star gates. When Doctor presented her discovery to the United Earth Council, there was silence in the room. Then President Park began to laugh. "They locked the doors," he said, "so we built our own." The fold drive changed everything. Suddenly, Earth was not trapped anymore. Human ships could go anywhere they wanted, faster than any species in the galaxy had ever traveled. The assembly's stargates were now useless against them. But President Park was a patient man. He did not want to reveal Earth's new power yet. He wanted to wait until the time was right. "Let them think we are dying," he told his advisors. "Let them forget about us. When we return, it will be on our terms." So the work continued in secret. Factories built new ships equipped with fold drives. Scientists developed new weapons, new shields, new medical technology. Earth became a hive of activity, all hidden from the eyes of the galaxy. On the Iron Mountain, Commander received regular reports about the progress. Each one made him more confident that they would succeed. "Sir, you should see this," said one day. She put a new report on his screen. Read it carefully. His eyes grew wide. "Is this real?" he asked. "Confirmed by 3 separate sources," replied. "The assembly is starting to have problems." The report described growing tensions within the galactic community. Without human technology and trade goods, some economies were struggling. Several smaller species had begun to question whether the banishment had been a mistake. There were even rumors that some assembly members wanted to reach out to Earth and ask for reconciliation. But shook his head. "Too late for that," he said quietly. "They made their choice. Now they will live with it." He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. "How long until the new fleet is ready?" he asked. 6 more months, answered. "The Council wants to launch the first wave before the end of the year." Nodded slowly. 6 months. After 3 years of silence, humanity would finally show itself again. But this time they would not come as beggars asking for permission. They would come as equals, or perhaps as something more. Meanwhile, the galaxy continued to believe its own lies. The assembly made announcements about how peaceful things had become since the humans left. Trade continued. Alliances held. Everything seemed normal. But there were some who sensed the truth. Ambassador, the water being who had voted against Earth, began having strange dreams. In these dreams, she saw human ships appearing out of nowhere, filling the sky like stars. She saw the great hall of the assembly empty and dark. She saw Speaker kneeling before a human woman with cold eyes. She told herself these were just nightmares. Humans were gone. They could not hurt anyone anymore. But deep inside, she knew better. She remembered Ambassador's smile on the day of the vote. That smile had not been the smile of someone who had lost. It had been the smile of someone who knew something others did not. The galaxy had made a terrible mistake, and the bill was about to come due. On Earth, a young naval officer named Minyu looked up at the night sky. Tomorrow, he would board one of the new ships. Tomorrow, he would help bring humanity back to the stars. His grandmother stood beside him. She was old and had lived through the banishment. She remembered the fear and hunger of those first dark months. "Are you scared?" she asked. Minyu thought about the question. "No," he said finally, "I am ready." His grandmother smiled and touched his face. "Good, show them what we are made of." Minyu nodded. The silence was almost over. The galaxy would soon learn that you could not throw away humanity like garbage. You could not cage them like animals. Humans were survivors. They adapted. They overcame. And they never, ever forgot. The morning began like any other on Station, the largest trade hub in the central galaxy. Millions of beings from dozens of species walked through its wide corridors. Ships arrived and departed every minute, carrying goods from 1,000 different worlds. The station was always busy, always loud, always alive with the sounds of commerce. Security chief sat in his office, drinking hot liquid from a metal cup. He was covered in thick gray fur, and he had worked on the station for 20 years. Nothing surprised him anymore. He had seen everything. Or so he thought. The first alarm came at exactly 700 station time. Spilled his drink as red lights began flashing across his screens. "What is happening?" He growled into his communicator. "Sir, we have contacts," a panicked voice replied. "Multiple contacts appearing near the station." Pulled up the sensor display. What he saw made his blood turn cold. Ships were appearing out of nowhere, not coming through the star gate, not approaching from normal space. They were simply appearing as if they had always been there and had just decided to become visible, and there were hundreds of them. The ships were like nothing had ever seen. They were sleek and silver, shaped like knives cutting through the darkness. They moved with perfect coordination, forming a ring around the station. "Identify those vessels," ordered. There was a long pause before the reply came. "Sir, the ships are broadcasting identification codes. They are human." Felt the fur on his neck stand up. Human. That was impossible. The humans had been banished 3 years ago. They had no way to travel without star gates. They were supposed to be trapped on their little world, slowly dying. Yet here they were. The same scene repeated itself across the galaxy. At the trading ports, at assembly supply stations and military bases, everywhere important, human ships appeared without warning. But they did not attack. Captain Menu stood on the bridge of his ship, the Dawn Star. He was young for a captain, but he had earned his position through skill and courage. His crew looked to him with complete trust. "Open a channel to the station," Menu ordered. "Channel open, sir." Menu straightened his uniform and looked directly at the communication screen. "Attention station. This is Captain Menu of the Earth vessel Dawn Star. We come in peace. We request permission to establish a trading post near your station. Please respond." There was silence for several long seconds. Then a confused voice answered. "Human vessel, this is station control. You are not authorized to be in community space. By order of the Galactic Assembly, all human ships must leave immediately or face destruction." Menu smiled politely. "With respect, we are not in community space. We are in neutral space, approximately 50 kilometers outside your official boundary. We have checked your laws very carefully. We are breaking no rules." This was true. When the Assembly had banished Earth, they had drawn specific boundaries. Any space outside those boundaries was not technically community territory. The Assembly had never thought to claim all of space because they had never imagined anyone could travel without their star gates. The station controller sounded uncertain. "Stand by, human vessel. We are contacting the Assembly." "Take your time," Menu said. "We are not going anywhere." While the station panicked and sent desperate messages to the Assembly headquarters, the human ships began to do something unexpected. They started unfolding. The sleek silver vessels opened up like flowers. Sections extended outward, connecting to each other. Within hours, what had been a fleet of ships had become a massive station. It was beautiful and strange, covered in lights and landing platforms. And then the broadcasts began. Every communication channel in the region suddenly carried the same message. A calm female voice spoke in perfect translation, understood by every species. "Greetings from Earth. We are the Human Trade Initiative. We are here to offer friendship and commerce to all who wish to participate. We offer technologies that do not exist anywhere else in the galaxy. Clean energy systems, advanced medical treatments, communication devices beyond anything you have seen. We ask nothing in return except fair trade and honest dealing. All are welcome, even those who voted against us." The message repeated every few minutes. Soon, curious traders began approaching the new human station. They were nervous at first, expecting a trap, but the humans welcomed them with smiles and showed them amazing things. An old merchant named Pollux was one of the first to visit. He was a small creature with scales and large eyes, and he had traded goods across the galaxy for most of his life. When he saw what the humans had to offer, he almost fainted. "This power cell," he said, holding a small silver cylinder. "You say it can run a standard freighter for 10 years. The human trader, a cheerful woman named, nodded. Yes, and it never needs fuel. It draws energy directly from space itself. Pollux nearly dropped the cylinder. Such technology was impossible. The best galactic power cells lasted maybe 2 years and cost a fortune. How much? He asked weakly. Named a price that was 1/10 what he expected. We are not here to make ourselves rich, she explained. We are here to make friends. Word spread quickly. Within days, thousands of traders were visiting the human stations. They bought power cells and medical scanners and communication devices. They brought back stories of how friendly the humans were, how fair their prices, how amazing their technology. The assembly was furious. Speaker called an emergency meeting. The great hall was filled with angry voices. This is an invasion, Ambassador shouted. His metal wings buzzed with rage. They have no right to be here. We must destroy them. With what? Asked another delegate. Their ships appeared inside our most secure systems without any warning. We have no idea how they travel. We have no defense against them. They are only traders, someone else said. Perhaps we should simply ignore them. Ignore them, spun to face the speaker. They are undermining our entire economy. Their technology is better than ours. Their prices are lower. If this continues, half the galaxy will be buying from Earth instead of us. Raised his hand for silence. I will speak with them, he said heavily. Perhaps we can reach some agreement. He sent a message to the human stations requesting a meeting. The reply came within minutes. The humans agreed to talk. The meeting was held on neutral ground, a small station in empty space. Brought a dozen guards and 3 other assembly leaders. He expected the humans to bring the same. Instead, only one human came. She was a middle-aged woman with silver hair and eyes that seemed to look right through you. She wore a simple white uniform with no decorations except a small Earth symbol on her collar. She walked into the meeting room alone, unarmed, completely calm. Recognized her immediately. It was Ambassador, the same woman who had stood in the Great Hall 3 years ago and watched as the assembly voted to banish her people. Speaker said, her voice was polite but cool. It has been a long time. Tried to match her calm, but his hands were shaking slightly. Ambassador, I see you have been busy during your absence. We had time to think, replied. Time to build, time to become what we were always meant to be. She sat down across from him, alone against 5 aliens and 12 guards. You wanted to talk, she continued, so talk. Cleared his throat. The assembly is concerned about your activities. You are disrupting trade. You are causing instability. We would like to discuss terms for your withdrawal. Laughed softly. It was not a friendly sound. Withdrawal? You misunderstand, Speaker. We are not here to negotiate our departure. We are here to stay. The question is whether the Assembly can accept that. The Assembly voted to banish Earth, said firmly. That decision stands. Of course it does, agreed. We are still banished from community space. We have no desire to enter your territory, but neutral space belongs to everyone, and we intend to use it. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. You threw us away because you were afraid of what we might become. Well, now you can see exactly what we became. We are stronger than before, smarter than before, and completely independent of your assembly. She turned back to face them. We offer this same independence to anyone who wants it. Good technology, fair prices, no political strings attached. Your assembly cannot compete with that. Felt a chill run down his spine. He finally understood what the humans were doing. They were not seeking revenge through war. They were seeking revenge through success. They were going to make the assembly irrelevant. What do you want? He asked quietly. Smiled. It was the same smile she had worn on the day of the vote. We want nothing from you, Speaker, absolutely nothing, and that is what frightens you most. She walked toward the door, then paused. You had a chance to be our friends. You chose to be our enemies. Now you are neither. You are simply unnecessary. The door closed behind her, leaving alone with a terrible realization. The galaxy had created its own worst enemy, and there was nothing they could do about it. 5 years had passed since humanity's return to the stars. In that time, everything changed. The human trade stations grew larger and more numerous. What had started as a few hundred ships had become a network of massive facilities spread across neutral space. They were cities floating in the void, filled with beings from every corner of the galaxy. Millions visited them each month to buy human technology, receive human medical care, or simply to see for themselves what Earth had created. On the station called New Seoul, Captain Minu walked through crowded corridors. He was no longer young. Gray had begun to appear in his hair and lines had formed around his eyes, but his step was still strong and his spirit was still full of fire. The station was a marvel of human engineering. Its walls were covered with living plants that cleaned the air. Soft music played everywhere, different tunes in different sections to match the preferences of different species. Restaurants served food from every world in the galaxy. Children of a dozen races played together in parks filled with trees and grass. It was everything the Galactic Assembly had feared humans would create, and it was beautiful. Minu stopped at a viewing window and looked out at the endless parade of ships arriving and departing, trading vessels, medical ships, science crafts carrying researchers eager to learn human secrets, all of them coming to Earth's new territories by choice, not by force. A young officer approached him. "Captain, you have a visitor." Minu turned. Standing behind the officer was a familiar figure. Ambassador, the insect-like being who had led the vote to banish Earth all those years ago, looked much older now. His metal wings hung low, and his once bright eyes had become dull and tired. "Ambassador," Minu said carefully, "this is unexpected." Made a gesture that might have been a bow. "Captain Minu, I am here on behalf of my people. We wish to discuss arrangements." Minu raised an eyebrow but said nothing. He led to a private meeting room and closed the door. "Speak," Minu said. Took a moment to compose himself. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with defeat. "My world is dying, Captain, not from war or disease, but from economy. Since humanity returned, our trade has fallen by 80%. No one wants to buy our goods when they can buy yours instead. No one wants to use our star gates when your ships can travel faster without them." He paused, his wings trembling slightly. "Our factories are closing. Our people are losing their jobs. Our young ones see no future. We cannot continue like this." Minu listened without expression. He remembered this being. He remembered how he had laughed during the vote, how he had given speeches celebrating Earth's banishment. Now that same being sat before him, broken and desperate. "What do you want from us?" Minu asked. "A trade agreement," said quickly. "Access to your technology, perhaps some investment in our economy. We are willing to offer many things in return: military support, political influence, whatever you want." Minu stood up and walked to the window. "5 years ago, your people voted to banish mine from the galaxy. You called us dangerous. You called us a threat. You said we could not be trusted." "We were wrong," admitted. "We made a mistake." "Yes, you did." Minu turned to face him. "But that is not the problem. The problem is that you made that mistake because you were afraid, not because we had done anything wrong. You punished us for what you thought we might do, not for what we had actually done." He sat down across from. "And now you come to us not because you want to be friends. You come because you need something. If your economy was still strong, you would never be in this room." Had no reply. They both knew it was true. "I will pass your request to our leadership," Minu said finally. "But I will tell you something honestly. We do not make exclusive deals. We do not give special treatment. Everyone who comes to us receives the same offer, Fair trade, fair prices, no political conditions. If that is acceptable, you are welcome to trade with us. If you want more than that, you will be disappointed. Swings drooped even further. But we were founding members of the Assembly. We have been leaders of this galaxy for centuries. Surely that must mean something. Minyu shook his head slowly. It means nothing, not to us. When we needed help, your centuries of leadership did not protect us. When we asked for fairness, your ancient laws did not save us. We learned that rank and history do not matter. Only actions matter. He opened the door. Think carefully about what you want, Ambassador, and think about what you are willing to give. Not what you think you deserve, but what you are actually willing to offer. When you have an answer, you may return. Left the station without another word. As his ship pulled away, he looked back at New Seoul. The human station was 3 times the size of any assembly facility. Its lights blazed against the darkness like a small sun. For the first time, truly understood what the assembly had done. They had not banished a weak species. They had set free a sleeping giant. And now that giant was awake, and the galaxy would never be the same. Similar scenes played out across human space. Delegates from a dozen species came begging for special deals. They offered money, resources, military alliances, and political support. The answer was always the same. Earth did not want allies bought with desperation. Earth did not want friends who only came when they needed something. Earth wanted to be treated as equals, nothing more, nothing less. The 3 species who had voted against the banishment were treated differently. Ambassador and her water people, the silicon-based, the ancient ones called simply the Watchers. These 3 had shown courage when it was unpopular. They had stood against the tide and said that banishing Earth was wrong. Humanity remembered. These 3 species received first access to new technologies. Their traders got the best spots in human stations. Their sick received priority at human hospitals. It was not favoritism. It was gratitude. Ambassador visited New Seoul often. She had become friends with many humans during the years of silence, meeting them in secret to share information and offer encouragement. Now those friendships could be public. She sat with Admiral, the commander of Earth's defense fleet, drinking tea in a quiet garden. Your people have achieved something remarkable, said. Her watery form rippled with what might have been admiration. In 5 years, you have changed the galaxy more than the Assembly changed it in 5,000. Smiled softly. She was an older woman with white hair and a face that had seen many battles, but her eyes were kind. We had good teachers, she said. Pain is an excellent motivator. What happens next? Asked. The Assembly is crumbling. Some species are talking about leaving. Others are talking about war. The galaxy feels like it is holding its breath. Set down her tea. We do not want war, we never did. But we also will not pretend that everything is fine. The Assembly treated us badly. Many of its members still hate us. We cannot ignore that. So what do you want? Thought for a long moment. We want respect. Real respect, not the pretend kind that disappears when we are no longer useful. We want a galaxy where species are judged by their actions, not their age or their appearance or their military power. We want a future where no one has to be afraid of being thrown away like we were. She looked at seriously. Can the Assembly give us that? Did not answer. They both knew the truth. The Assembly was too old, too rigid, too set in its ways. It had been built on fear and power, not on trust and fairness. It could not become what humanity needed it to be. But something new could. On Earth, President Park gathered his advisors for a secret meeting. They discussed things that would shake the galaxy to its core. New alliances, new structures, a new order that would replace the failing Assembly. It would take time. It would take patience. It would take the same determination that had carried humanity through the dark years of banishment. But it would happen. Humanity had proven that they could survive anything. Now they would prove that they could build something better. In the garden on New Sol, asked one final question. Do you ever forgive? Those who voted against you, I mean. Can they ever earn your trust again? Considered the question carefully. Forgiveness is possible, she said finally, but trust must be earned, and that takes time and proof. Words are easy, actions are hard. We will judge them by what they do, not what they say. She stood up and looked out at the stars. The galaxy has a choice to make. They can keep clinging to the old ways that failed them, or they can help us build something new. We are patient. We can wait. Her eyes hardened slightly. But we will not wait forever. 10 years after the vote that changed everything, the great hall of the Galactic Assembly sat empty and dark. The crystal walls no longer glowed. The seats where 47 species once gathered were covered in dust. The screens that had displayed the vote to banish Earth were black and silent. The most powerful institution in the galaxy had become a tomb. Speaker stood alone in the center of the hall. He was old now, older than any of his kind should be. The stress of the past decade had aged him terribly. His 4 arms hung limp at his sides, and his stone skin had become cracked and dull. He heard footsteps behind him. Slow, deliberate footsteps that echoed through the empty chamber. Beautiful, is it not? A voice said, in a sad sort of way. Did not turn around. He knew that voice. He had heard it in his nightmares for 10 years. Ambassador, he said quietly, or should I say Chancellor now? Walked past him and looked up at the empty seats. She wore a simple white coat, the same style she had always worn. But now a small golden symbol hung on a chain around her neck. It was the symbol of the Stellar Confederation, the new alliance that had replaced the Assembly. I still prefer Ambassador, she said. Chancellor sounds too formal. Finally turned to face her. Even after everything that had happened, she looked calm and peaceful. There was no anger in her eyes, no triumph, just a quiet satisfaction. Why did you ask me to meet you here? Asked. To show me what we have lost, to celebrate your victory. Shook her head. I wanted to offer you something, a chance to join the Confederation. Made a sound that might have been a laugh. Join, after everything my people did, after I led the Assembly for centuries while it crumbled around me. You cannot be serious. I am completely serious. Walked closer to him. The Confederation is not about the past, it is about the future. Any species that accepts our principles is welcome, regardless of their history. Your principles, repeated bitterly. And what are those? Revenge, domination, making us all servants of Earth. No, his voice was firm but not angry. Our principles are simple, fair treatment for all species, decisions made together not by the powerful few, trade without exploitation, growth without destruction, peace without fear. She spread her hands. That is all we ever wanted. That is what we asked for when we first joined the galaxy. You refused to give it to us, so we built it ourselves. Was silent for a long moment. Then he asked the question that had haunted him for years. Why did you not destroy us? You had every reason. You had the power. Your ships could have wiped out the Assembly in a matter of weeks. Why did you choose trade instead of war? Walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Because war would have made us into the monsters you always said we were. We wanted to prove you wrong, not prove you right. She turned back to him. And because we are not stupid, war destroys everything, including the winner. Building is harder than destroying, but what you build can last forever. We chose to build. Outside the abandoned assembly hall, the galaxy had indeed been rebuilt. The Stellar Confederation now included 32 species, with more joining every month. Its capital was a massive station called Unity, built in neutral space where all could reach it easily. Human fold drives had been shared freely, allowing everyone to travel without depending on the old star gates. Admiral commanded the Confederation Defense Fleet from her flagship, the Morning Star. It was the largest fleet ever assembled, with ships from a dozen different worlds flying side by side. But its purpose was not conquest. Its purpose was protection. "Admiral, we have a situation," her aide reported. "Pirates attacking a merchant convoy near the sector." Looked at the tactical display. 3 human ships were closest to the attack. "Send the patrol, protect the convoy, and remind the pirates that piracy is no longer tolerated in Confederation space." "Yes, Admiral." The human ships arrived within minutes, using their fold drives to cover the vast distance almost instantly. The pirates, flying old assembly-era vessels, tried to flee. They did not get far. Within an hour, the convoy was safe and the pirates were in custody. This was the new order: fast response, fair justice, protection for all who needed it. On Earth, celebrations marked the 10-year anniversary of the Confederation's founding. Billions of humans gathered in cities around the world to watch fireworks and listen to music. But the celebrations were not about victory. They were about hope. President Park had retired 5 years ago, but he attended the main ceremony in Seoul. He sat in the front row, watching as Chancellor gave her speech. "10 years ago, we were thrown away like garbage," said. Her voice carried across the crowd through countless speakers. "They told us we did not belong. They told us we were too dangerous. They told us we would fail without them." She paused and smiled. "They were wrong." The crowd cheered, but raised her hand for silence. "But we must not become what they were. We must not let power make us cruel. We must not let success make us careless." The old assembly fell because it forgot why it was built. It became about control instead of cooperation, about fear instead of hope. Her voice grew serious. "We must never forget our purpose. We exist to help each other, to lift each other up, to make sure that no species, human or alien, ever has to face the darkness alone again." She looked out at the crowd, at the billions of faces watching her across Earth and across the stars. "This is our promise, this is our rule, and we will keep it no matter what." In the abandoned assembly hall, listened to the speech through his communicator. When it ended, he sat down heavily in his old chair at the center of the chamber. "She really believes it," he said quietly. "She really thinks she can make it work." "She does not just think it," said a voice behind him. "She knows it." Turned, Commander stood in the doorway. He was old now, retired from active service, but his eyes were still sharp. "The Confederation is not perfect," continued. "Nothing made by living beings ever is. There will be problems. There will be disagreements. There will be moments when it seems like everything is falling apart." He walked toward. "But the difference is that we learn from our mistakes. We do not repeat them. We do not throw away species because we are afraid of what they might become. We judge by actions, not by fears." He held out his hand. "Come with me, Speaker. Visit Unity Station. See what we have built. Then decide if you want to be part of it." Looked at the offered hand for a long time. Then slowly, he reached out and took it. "I was wrong about your people," he said quietly. "I was afraid. I let that fear control me. I made decisions that hurt billions of beings." "Yes," agreed, "you did." "Can that ever be forgiven?" Help to his feet. "Forgiveness is a journey, not a destination. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes proof that you have truly changed. But it is possible." He led toward the door. "The first step is the hardest, but you have taken it. That is more than many of your colleagues ever did." They walked out of the empty hall together, leaving the past behind. On Unity Station, Ambassador watched the 2 figures approach through the docking bay windows. She stood beside Admiral and Captain Minyu, waiting to greet them. "Do you think he has really changed?" Minyu asked. Shrugged. "We will see. People can surprise you for good or for bad. The important thing is to give them the chance." The airlock opened and stepped onto the station. He looked around at the bustling crowds, at the different species walking side by side, at the human and alien children playing together in a nearby garden. For the first time in his long life, he saw what the galaxy could be, not divided by fear, not controlled by the powerful, but united by hope, working together toward something better. "Welcome to the Confederation," said. "We hope you will like it here." Looked at her, then at Minu, then at. Then he looked up at the great dome that covered the station, showing a million stars shining in the darkness. "I think I will," he said softly. "I think I will." And so the galaxy moved forward, not without problems, not without struggles, but together, step by step, toward a future that once seemed impossible. Humanity had been thrown away. They had risen again, and in rising they had lifted everyone else with them. That was the human way. That was their gift to the stars. And it was only the beginning.